Okay, so first and foremost, thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it. And I want to begin our conversation with surviving the last 3.5 years. How did you get through the pandemic and how did it change you?
Well, I have to say, during the pandemic, it was probably a bittersweet for everybody and for myself included. I did write a book during that time, so I was able to have some time to myself. I found out that also I'm a homebody and I love being a homebody, so that actually worked out well. And my daughter and I own an event company, and I thought it was interesting that we had to recreate ourselves, events and find a way to do this and still have a livelihood and have some kind of income coming in and recreate the business of what that looks like and how do you still get married. And what I realized is that people find ways to celebrate life and they're still going to get married. There's still going to be funerals. There's still going to be life around us, even though the world shuts down. And so what we did, we ended up just having maybe a wedding with 10 people in the wedding and having everybody spaced out or having food catered to it. And it was actually kind of creative and fun. It was a nice little mix up but it was different. So then how do you make money from that? And it was I guess out of everything, it just told me that love perseveres, that we still find ways to get together. And I think that's what my biggest lesson out of it was like we need people and still love perseveres and we still date online and there's a whole lot that goes to that. And self discovery was that I had time to sit down and write this book that I never thought I would ever write, kind of like the secret that I hid inside myself as a kid, and that was about my sexual abuse. And I got a chance to write it. I thought it was going to be a cookbook, but it didn't turn out to be a cookbook. It turned out to be a recipe of like what happened in my life. And so it was some quiet time. And what I took out of it was that I think I needed more balance in my life, more structure, and to take time for myself so that I could be okay. I think I realized like I have to set boundaries and tell people, no, I can't go to that because I'm actually better being an introvert and then having this extroverted side to it. So I just took some time just to be by myself and kind of write and create and in an inward way. And so that was really good. What
Yeah.
about you?
Oh, I just, I have a special needs son. He's 18 on the spectrum. I have a stepdaughter that's on the other side, and I just moved around, got out and saw the world. I did more interviews than I ever did. I interview jazz musicians primarily, and the timbre of their voice and the way that they carry themselves is always overwhelmingly positive and confident. So I would play the interviews on speaker and they would hear it. So it was a really good way of them to kind of keep that level of the glass half full, so to speak. So
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
it was. I mean, they had a monopoly on us. We had to find a way, and that's just what you do. It's the way life is.
Right, right. I have a special needs son too. He's 30 now. He turned this 30 this summer. And I have to say, this was the best growing years of his life was during COVID. And he set some weird boundaries for me too. He asked me not to get on any form of technology on the spot for 2 weeks. And I have to say, it was one of the hardest
Wow.
challenges I had ever done. I was like, what?
Yeah.
He goes, "That means you can't check your phone, you can't check your computer. I mean, like, right now, you can't do any of that." And I thought, "Wow, like,
Yeah.
I would never do this."
Yeah.
It was just something just thinking out of the box a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So, yeah, my son just has a long arm on his 15th chromosome, so it's led to developmental delays. And yeah, it's just and I asked him at the end of the year, I always do kind of these goofy little podcasts with him. And at the end of 2020, I said, "How was your year?" And he genuinely said it was good. We moved right before it all happened in January. And just a new school, a new environment, all of these things that were different. And he just genuinely felt like it was a good year. And that at the end of the year made me feel good. It was really resoundingly nice to hear that. Because
I
at the end of the day, we have more mileage as adults than kids. So we always worry about our kids, but you think during that time period, what's going to happen. And I think there's a level of resiliency, when you see everything, not one, two, or three things, but your whole world gets altered, you have to adapt to it. And there's a
Right.
level of resiliency by osmosis that's going to happen. So that was kind of interesting to see play out.
I
So
love that. No, it's very true. I have to say, I also ached for everybody when I would watch what was happening politically, watching everything. I just had to turn off all
yeah,
media because I was kind of disappointed in humanity. Like
yeah,
I thought I mean, it was just really upsetting. So I just had to like tune out and I thought, oh, I might be overly sensitive. But it was just like everybody was aching
yeah,
around the world. It was
yeah,
tough times, like really tough times.
yeah, absolutely it was. Well, I want to get to the essence of what you do for a living. So what I want to do is I want to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. One of the kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I tell them that I have two worlds. One, I'm a speaker and an advocate for sexual abuse survivors. And then the other one, just to create, there's a creative part of my life, and I play with flowers and talk about love on the other spectrum of it, in that we both have, as humans, sometimes we have darker spots and heavier parts of ourselves, and then lighter things, and that it's okay to talk about both, and we're complex. And I would probably encourage them to talk about both. And we can't always talk about the sunny days. We have to take the hard days in there.
Yeah. Well, it almost seems like your right and left brain get to commingle. You get a kind of, when one side gets exhausted, you get to jump over to the other side. You got a little bridge.
Right. It's so true. But I think everybody has that. I think we're
Yeah.
just encouraged to talk about that.
Yeah. It's survival for sure. And we have to have that. So let me ask you this. Tell me where you were born and raised and what some of these seeds that were put in you, obviously being a survivor and helping others go through very traumatic situations, and then having a creative side to help other people. How did these seeds get into you to want to help and to be a catalyst for that?
Wow, I love the way you just said that. I think um maybe it's just age. I'm older, I'm 60, and I think when you are fortunate enough to live long enough, then you really realize like the tough times, actually there's value in it, and there's a lot to say about it. Maybe that's why our kids or young people come up to us, because we have a lot to say. We've been around the block several times, and I think all the stepping stones I look at now, they were hard, difficult challenges, things I never thought I would be able to get through or express myself about. And they all add value now in some form of wisdom. And I think every horrible, horrific moment, whatever that may be, it's all relevant with that, bad hair day. That might be the worst thing that you may ever encounter. But every aspect of that has value, it has purpose. And to find that value, whatever that may be, I think that's um, kind of like vital. Like,
Yeah.
look at that gift, look at that silver lining.
Yeah. So obviously, for you to achieve your dreams and to overcome things that you've had to go through, you need to have heroes. Who's been that for you?
Oh, that's my son, Brian. He was born with a rare brain tumor, and he lost his ability to speak, to walk, and to eat. And he went to college, but the back door, it wasn't like the same way that most people do. And the fact that he's able to just express himself, talk. He lives on his own. It's a struggle for him 24/7, but I have to say he inspires me all the time, and he's my go-to person when I falter, and he could just look at a problem and just tell me how it is, and he takes out the emotion, and he's my hero. He's my greatest hero. He always tells me there's a workaround every every problem, and that's because he lives that way, and his expectations are really high, but they're realistic, and I think sometimes, um, I sugarcoat things or maybe things are too lofty in a sense, and he's like, "No, you did it. It's just my interpretation of it." It's like, "No, you did it, mom." So he's my greatest hero. I just get
Yeah.
so excited talking to him.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I feel like that about Miles. He's definitely my hero. He's one of those guys that he's trying really, really, really hard, and he has to do things in a different way. I mean, there was a time where I didn't think he was going to speak. I remember asking his speech therapist when he was like 3. I'm like, "You can tell me right now if he's not going to talk. I can just let me know." And she was like, "Oh no, what's going to happen?" And now I can't I can't get him to stop talking. He
Really?
thought, oh man, he's talking to everybody. Yeah, he just loves people. He's a social creature. So it's just funny how life happens. You just think things are going to happen certain ways. But I was a new parent. I didn't know what I was doing, whether it was neurotypical or neurodivergent. I had no idea. So I'm just trying to navigate. It's like you're just trying to hit that flashlight, say, don't go out, stay on. And that's what we're
Right.
doing as parents. We're trying to just go through the darkness with as much light as we can.
I love the fact that you're even hip on the term, because he told me, I'm not special needs anymore." I'm like, "Oh, okay, what are you?"
Right.
And he said, "Neurodivergent," is that right?
Yeah, it's evolved. I'm trying to get to it. I
Oh,
try to interject the lingo.
he told me the greatest thing. He said, "Do you know that everybody's special needs, mom?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so." He goes, "There's something wrong with
Oh
everybody."
yeah. That's
Yeah.
so that's brilliant. Yeah. I always think that um there's a poet that said at one point we're born geniuses and buried idiots. And the beauty of the special needs world is that they don't get the fences that we do. And they hold on to a level of innocence and wonder. Like Miles is still 18 and still recognizes all of the holidays. And I will incubate and hold on to that innocence as long as he's alive, because that's one of the problems with adults is we lose that imagination. We cut off the creativity and we say no more than we say yes. And that's not okay.
Mhm, mhm.
So with these kids, they incubate this innocence and this wonder that is the reason why we go to movies. It's the reason why we indulge in art, and it's living, it's real, and that's
Right.
what they do.
Yeah, is your son really into art?
He is, yeah, he's more into sports. Yeah, he's an interesting mix of all of those things. But yeah, by osmosis, he's listened to so much music. I'm a visual artist. That's one of my paintings. So he's been to art shows and he has been a part of all of these things. So yeah, he's a palette, he's full of color. His real canvas is his clothes. When you see him, you're like, wow, like loud cat pants, tie-dye shirt, loud hat, whatever it is, but it works. He makes it work. He has turned into a fashionista in a way I never knew it was possible.
I love that. Actually, my son's so into, art, and, which is interesting because the IT world, that's what he shines at. Um, that is a form of art too. So when I look
Certainly.
at him, he's very artistic, but he constantly draws and, I'm he's got this whole paint room set up but what you have in the background is beautiful. Like,
Thank you.
it's extremely vibrant, and I love it.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'm an IT guy by day. I'm an IT technician for a school district. So I go into rooms all the time fixing technology. So I understand that kind of level of it because it really is. There's a science and an art that goes into figuring out how things just die and come back to life. So
Well, I could see that your son inspires you because, there's like a glow about you when you
yeah.
talk about there's like an energy.
Yeah, it's amazing when you get older, when you see this seed that grows and you see it from birth to where it's at, and you feel all of those things. And in the little moments when they come up to you and hug you or say something to you, it's like you realize that there are miracles and there are reasons that we're here and that we're trying to find things in this life. And when you get somebody that's special needs that can flip things and you see it a different way, you finally get to see it after all this time. It's like Stranger Things, like there is an upside down world, you know?
Right.
So
That perspective. I think, yeah, they make you I love it. He always says, "I think out of the box constantly." And so that's why I go to him, because he always makes me he pushes the box is not the box. It's not even square after I get finished talking to him, and I
Absolutely.
it's pretty amazing just to have that insight.
Yeah, it's a gift, that's for sure. So let me ask you this, of all the people alive on the planet, if you could meet one person that's influenced you or inspired you, who would it be?
Oh, but it's 2. It's 2. Can I
Do
share
it.
the
Yeah, you load that table up. Have a dinner.
So I have to say, Maya Angelou, when I was a kid, I was looking for hope and inspiration, and I read her book. Oh gosh, it's an old book. Um, I can't think of it right now, sorry. But when I read her book and she was talking about her trauma and the way she wrote it, I was like, I stopped and I thought, she is not talking about mental health and trauma. I thought she is not. And then I would read it back and I thought, this is her life. This is her story. And I have to say, I was like taken back. Also, Oprah, when I remember standing in the room when she talked about what had happened to her about the sexual abuse, and I still remember the way the room looked. I remember I was folding laundry. I'm holding up the washcloth, the towels for the kitchen, and I thought both of them. I thought if they could find the courage to express themselves and not hold shame around it, what would I do with that? How could I change myself and my family and friends and the people around me? And I was too afraid to even get past that. I just entertained the thought.
Yeah,
So that was like always something in the back of my head, like, how do I find inspiration and hope? And I thought, well, these two ladies did it.
yeah.
Maybe that would be me. It was also that hopeful moment.
Yeah. Well, and when people that big do that, you don't feel so alone. Like that, I think that's the
Mhm.
part of going through something that's traumatic is when you feel like you're in a vacuum and you don't have any outlet or you're not supposed to say anything or whatever society deems should be done to get through it. And when those figures that are as towering and huge as they are, they just send ripples out to the water.
Yeah, exactly. Who are yours?
Oh man, I actually just met my hero. It's weird. When I
No.
was a kid, my hero was Dwight Gooden, the pitcher for the Mets. I loved him. He had this level of overcome, and I just loved him. I emulated him. I had posters everywhere. And long story short, recently he got inducted into the Hall of Fame here in Kansas City at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And I got a press pass, and he came in and he was so cool. And Miles was there, and I have to be careful with him because if I make it too big, it could turn into a thing where he eviscerates and it turns into a thing. So I just played it off. But I had a chance to interview him, and before it happened, a big station grabbed him. I looked at Miles and I said, Miles, whatever you do right now, I am not here with you in a way that I can be. You need to take as many pictures and videos of this moment right now. And he was like, okay. And he got a pose with him. I got to meet him. I interviewed him, and I still can't believe it happened. Like, you're not supposed to meet your heroes, but Dwight was one of the kindest people I've ever met in my life. It validates so much because I met the person and they were exactly what I thought they were going to be.
Oh, that's really cool.
And the fact
Seriously.
that
You told your son exactly like, you just played it out and just knew exactly how he should be, and
just
wow.
the moment before, like he didn't know anything. He just knew because he loves baseball. He knew there was going to be these Hall of Fame people and there was going to be all this pageantry. But as far as like what it did, and I remember telling him when I got out, his thing still to me is he was like, that's where you came out and your knees were wobbly. That's what he says. Because when I came out, I said, Miles, I am right now in a weird place. My knees are a little shaky. Something big happened. And I told him the whole story in the car about how I loved him when I grew up. And I said, what do you think about that? And he said, well, he's my hero now too. So it was pretty cool. It was a
Love
full
that.
circle moment. Yeah.
I
So anyway,
was.
yeah, it's funny how life can happen.
Mhm.
Just got to wait long enough sometimes,
That's right.
you
That's
know?
right. Yeah.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a much younger version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom that you've gained, the achievements, the overcoming. What advice would you give your younger self?
Anything is possible. Like, think outside your box, recreate that box, to live kind of fearlessly, take those opportunities. Um, Fear is kind of in your mind, and just to step outside of yourself, just to think outside of yourself, step outside of your whatever you create, live fearlessly and live it fully. And even you can make a wrong a right.
So of all of the things that you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I know it sounds crazy, but I think it's the way I raise my children. I I remember looking at, when I was a kid, and all these kids were like, "I want to be a doctor, and I want to be a nurse, and I want to be the president." And I remember thinking, because my parents weren't like the healthiest family. I mean, they were like okay, they were kind of going through life. And I remember thinking, how come nobody says, I want to have an amazing relationship with my partner and I want to raise amazing children? Because though that is the core. Why don't
Mhm.
people make that like the goal, like
Right.
a career? Because if you have that nucleus, then you probably could do anything. And I remember thinking about divorces too. I was just little, probably just way too much in my head. And I remember the teacher came up to me and she said, "What do you want to be, Cindy?" And I said, "I want to be an amazing partner to to my significant other, but my husband, and I want to have great kids." And she goes, "Well, that's not a career." And I thought it was. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
That's great. That's a great answer. That's so true because we do put all those values on it, and it should be the priority in our lives for sure. Um, so what's the motivation for you every day? Every day you wake up, you have these things that you want to do. What is that motivator for you that gets you through the day and that ultimately you get to achieve what you want to get done?
I challenge myself all the time. I write goals for myself. I think it's just challenging myself just to grow and recreate myself in so many aspects in different ways. I think when I feel like I'm stagnant, I kind of look at my sheet. I even ask my kids to make goals. I even have my special need, my son Brian. I set goals for him if he can't. And we just kind of constantly challenge and expand ourselves. And through that, it just feels like life has just endless, there's no barriers, and just growing and growing and growing. And that to me is the challenge of living life in its fullest. To me, that just sounds great. Although I do take the time to watch the grass grow, but
Sure.
I just constantly believe in challenging yourself.
I get
If
it.
it's scary, do it.
Yeah, that's right. Jump out of the plane. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you ultimately lead the charge. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Peace, calmness, um, happiness, um, simplicity. I don't really think that's it.
Okay.
I, yeah.
That's good. Sometimes that question seems as though it can be a dissertation, but the simplicity is profound for sure.
Thank
So,
you.
so if anyone out there wants to pick up your book, they want to learn more about you, anything about your world, where is the best place to go?
Uh, So I love to hear from anybody. Everybody's walk of life is different. I'm just curious about people in general. But if you could reach out to me at www.cindytalks.com. There you could read my blog, reach out to me, find me on Amazon, and my book is called Under the Orange Blossoms. And I'd love to hear from you. I really would.
Excellent. Cindy, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time out. You got a wonderful story. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Likewise.
Thank you. Take care.